I was cleaning out the attic when I found it a decaying photo album inside a dust-choked shoebox labeled for Michael. The box was wedged beneath rotting blankets that smelled of mildew and something else, something sharp and metallic like old blood. As I pulled it free, a sudden coldness sank into my bones as if the air had teeth. The attic groaned around me. Floorboards creaked without weight. In the far corner, something whispered my name low, breathless, almost eager. My pulse hammered in my ears. The album's leather cover was cracked like dried skin. I opened it with trembling fingers. Dust spiraled upward, and the coppery taste of bile rose in my throat. Each page revealed a nightmare. There I was, birthday hats, school, uniforms, vacations to the lake. But beside me, in every photo, stood a boy, identical. Same eyes, same calic, same scar beneath the chin I thought was mine alone. I flipped faster, picture after picture of us, but I only remember me. A drawing slipped from between the pages, 2 stick figures. One blacked out violently in thick charcoal, scribbled below in a child's shaky hand. Don't forget, Daniel. He gets angry. A sudden pounding echoed through the attic, from below, from inside the walls. The wood began to seep thick, black liquid that reeked of rot and salt. I stepped back, heart racing, mind unraveling. Was I hallucinating? Sleep deprived? Then a gust of warm breath kissed my ear, and a voice, not mine, whispered, "You let them burn me." I stumbled into an old trunk and found melted candles, rusted nails, pages from a torn Quran and Bible alike, frantic rituals in both Arabic and Latin, desperate attempts, failed ones. The air stilled. The bleeding walls stopped. Almost. Laughed in relief, until I noticed my shadow wasn't following me anymore. It was watching. Asterisk, our house had always been too quiet. The kind of quiet that isn't peace sits, waiting, nestled at the edge of the woods in northern Vermont. The air hung damp and heavy, and the trees whispered things at night in languages I didn't know. That evening, after finding the photo album, I sat at the dinner table, my fingers still, sticky with attic dust, the smell of rot clinging to my clothes. Mom stirred her soup absently. Dad stared into his plate like it held a memory he didn't want. "I found this," I said, laying the photo album between us. "Who's the boy in the pictures with me?" The silence snapped like a bone. Mom dropped her spoon. It clattered and rolled off the table, landing with a metallic thud. Her face drained of color. Dad's fork hovered midair. Then he set it down slowly. Too slowly, Michael, he said with effort, not meeting my eyes. "You've never had a brother." I opened the album, again blank. Every page now empty, as if devoured by time itself. The air grew colder, tasting faintly of pennies and spoiled meat. Behind me, something creaked upstairs, something walking, dragging. I wanted to believe it was just shock, just confusion. But my thoughts wouldn't hold still. I heard giggling from the hallway mirror. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. I pressed my palms to the wooden table, only to feel it pulse once beneath my skin. The house was breathing. In the town's folklore, there's talk of shadow twins, spirits, born from stillbirths or ritual curses. They say if a child dies nameless, unloved, he lingers, unfinished. Some say salt circles work. Others say nothing does. The air grew still again. Mom smiled, too wide. "You must be tired," she said, sweetly. But behind her eyes, something else blinked. Something hungry. That night, I tried to sleep. The sheets were cold and damp, as if the bed had been soaked in fog. My room smelled faintly of copper and old wood, like a cellar that hadn't been opened in decades. Outside, the wind howled low too low, like someone humming through clenched teeth. I buried myself under the covers and closed my eyes. Just silence for a moment. Then the whispering started. It came from beneath the bed, then from inside the closet, then from the walls themselves. A language I didn't know, but my bones understood anger, hunger, betrayal. I clenched my jaw. My tongue tasted of bile and rust. I wanted to scream, but my body wouldn't move. I felt the pressure on my chest, cold, heavy, like a second heartbeat, not my own. The moonlight through the window flickered, as if something passed in front of it slow, deliberate. I told myself it was just a cloud. I even laughed once, kinda laughed that's more a plea than a sound. And then, the house fell quiet again. The whispers vanished. The air warmed. I could breathe. For a brief moment, I felt safe. I reached for my lamp, hand trembling, and turned it on. Warm yellow light spilled across the floor. Nothing there, nothing except a child's drawing taped to my ceiling. Crayon scrawls of two boys, one smiling, the other crossed out in red. I yanked it down. In the corner, tiny letters read, "He was born in the fire. You forgot the ash." I stumbled back and hit the dresser, groaned in from inside it, supped and growled. Locals whispered of the nameless twin, a spirit born when a baby is cast away without a name, without love. But what if he had a name once, and I had it too? Asterisk, the next morning, I needed answers. I skipped school, claiming I was sick, but the truth was unraveling. My reflection had begun to lag behind me in mirrors. My voice echoed twice, slightly, out of sync. I walked into town, the autumn air thick with wood smoke and decay, the leaves crunching like brittle bones underfoot. I went straight to the library, what was left of it. Half of it had burned down decades ago. Local legend claimed it was lightning, but old folks whispered different stories. That the fire started in the nursery aisle, that a baby had died inside, or worse, something had escaped. In the microfilm archives, I found a yellowed article, "Tragedy at Hollow Creek Orphanage, 1973. The image was warped, but I could make out a charred cradle. The walls behind it streaked with soot that vaguely resembled claw marks. No survivors, except one boy, unnamed. They never logged his adoption. Behind me, a bookshelf creaked. I turned sharply, no one, but the air smelled like burnt cloth and iron, and my fingertips, still resting on the article, felt cold. Too cold, like touching the steel door of a mill. I pulled back, and my nails were blackened. Ash. In the basement, I found old county records. One file, sealed in wax, had my name scratched across it tanned, another beneath it, smeared out violently. My stomach twisted. I tasted blood in my throat. I opened it, sighed a birth certificate. 2 names, 2 sons. One scratched out with what looked like fingernails. Daniel. I dropped the file and backed away. The basement lights buzzed and flickered. Then, in the concrete wall, a dark, wet patch began to spread. It smelled of rot and warm copper. Behind me, from the corner of the dark, a child's voice murmured, "Now you remember." I ran home with the birth certificate clenched in my hand, but each step felt heavier, as if something unseen was dragging behind me, tethered to my spine. I slammed the front door shut and pressed my back against it, panting. For a moment, silence, creaking floors. No whispers, just my own shaky breath and the taste of copper at the back of my throat. Then I saw the footprints, small, barefoot print stamp and black trailing from the hallway into the living room. The air smelled like burnt wood and old blood, and the wallpaper pulsed faintly, like skin stretched too tight. I followed the prints. They stopped at the mirror above the fireplace. My reflection stood there alone, but I felt it. The cold weight of something beside me, breathing, watching. I blinked, and for one terrible instant, there he was, Daniel, standing next to me, pale, hollow-eyed, smiling with too many teeth. I screamed and stumbled back, but when I looked agonizingly, me, my reflection trembled slightly, like a ripple in still water. That night, I tried one of the old superstitions from town, a salt circle. Okay, I locked myself in the attic and poured the salt around me. I clutched the birth certificate like a talisman and waited. The air grew thick, wet, choking, a lull, false peace, no noises, no shadows. For the first time in days, I began to believe it was over. I laughed, softly, shakily. Then, from behind a box, a voice hissed, "Salt only stops the body, not the blood." The attic walls began to weep, thick, black streaks dripping from the corners. It smelled of rot and ashdot, and then my phone buzzed. One new message from an unknown number simply read, "Daniel wants to come back. Will you let him in this time?" I dropped the phone. It clattered to the wooden floor of the attic and slid into the dark. I didn't go after it. I couldn't. My hands were trembling too hard. My mouth was full of bile-thick, bitter ant. The salt circle around me had been broken. A single wet footprint cut through it. The grains smeared like ash in a gust. I backed into a corner, knees tucked, heart pounding so violently I could hear it in my ears, except it wasn't just that. There were whispers now, whispering, names over and over, mine and Daniel's, from the rafters, from inside the walls. Then the floor began to shift beneath mule-like breathing. The old boards creaked, groaned, pulsed. Cold air rose from between them, reeking of rust and decay. Something thick and oily began to drip from the ceiling beams. I tasted it on my lips, metallic, like old pennies, and something older, fouler.n. The dim light of a flickering bulb. I spotted an old trunk in the corner. Something pulled me to it, and though every part of me screamed not to move, I crawled toward it. The lid groaned as I opened it. Inside was a bundle wrapped in stained linen. I peeled it back. Baby clothes blackened and charred clung to tiny bones. A melted pacifier lay nearby, fused to a broken rattle. Beneath them, a rotted book bound in stitched leather. I opened it. Rituals, dark ones, drawings of twin boys, one shaded entirely in black, labeled the other. Notes scribbled in the margins in a trembling hand. The mirror is the door. He must not be remembered. Names give power. I shut the book and the light went out, and from the mirror's reflection, Daniel stepped through only this time. I wasn't the one screaming. Asterisk, the room twisted. I wasn't sure if I had screamed or if it was Daniel, again mimicking my voice. His grin stretched too far, skin pale and blistered like wax held near flame. I backed away, slipped on something slick. My hand hit the wall-wet. The wallpaper peeled in slow strips, revealing rot underneath, as if the house itself had been infected. The air was dense, laced with the stench of spoiled milk and old copper. I gagged. My tongue felt thick, coated with something sharp and metallic, like I'd bitten down on a coin. The book still lay open behind me. I reached for it, hoping for a way out anything. Another page revealed more. Twins born under the red moon must be split. One kept, one buried. One soul, one shadow. Never say the shadow's name. Remembered. Now, my mother whispering to herself, her eyes always tired. The little door in the basement we were never allowed to open. The one she sealed with red string and chicken bones when I was 4. She used to mutter prayers in a language I didn't understand, then sprinkle black salt around the chimney each winter. She said it was tradition. I thought it was superstition. Now I understood. I staggered down the stairs, every creak underfoot echoing louder than it should have. like the house was listening. I reached the basement door. The red string had long since snapped. The hinges groaned as I opened it. For a moment, nothing moved. The air was dead. The quiet wrapped around me like false comfort. Then came the soft sound of fingernails scraping the cement below. And my voice whispered from the dark. "You left me down here, brother, but I never left you." The basement swallowed me home. The stairs groaned under my weight, each step releasing a puff of dust and a sickening scent of wet stone, copper, and decay. My fingers skimmed the wall cold, damp, pulsing faintly beneath flaking paint, as though veins ran just beneath the plaster. I wanted to stop. I wanted to turn around. My legs kept moving, drawn down like something was coiling around my spine, guiding me. The whispers returned closer now, layered, childlike giggles, twisted with sobs and clicks. It's like nails tapping against glass. The bile in my throat thickened, my mouth filled with the taste of rust and rot. A soft weeping echoed ahead. It was Daniel, or what used to be Daniel. The flickering light bulb above sparked once, then failed. In the pitch dark, I fumbled forward, until my hand landed on something strange, lick and warm. I recoiled, but curiosity pushed harder than fear. I struck a match. The floor was covered in symbols, burned into the stone, written in blood. At the center, a pile of tiny bones encircled by melted wax and rotting flowers. A child's shoe, a cracked mirror. I dropped the match. In its dying light, I saw him fully. Daniel, if that was still his name, stood in the corner, limbs too long, eyes sunken, black fluid dripping from his mouth. His skin fluttered like something beneath it was moving. I screamed. He didn't. He only whispered. Mother tried to bury me. The salt didn't hold. Then the walls began to bleed. Dark liquid seeped from the cracks, running upward, defying gravity. My vision swam. The ground trembled. For a moment, everything stilled. Silence. And then hundreds of hands burst from the floor, clawing at my legs. Each one had my face. I tried to run. I think I did, but the floor had changed slick, like wet meat, sucking at my feet with each step. The air was thick with the smell of iron and decay, like something had been slaughtered just moments before. I arrived. My throat burned. Every breath tasted of copper and bile. Behind me, Daniel No, the thing wearing his skin, watched, grinning with too many teeth. I tripped, crashed against the wall. It pulsed under my palm, as if alive. I screamed, again, hoarse and cracking, but it came out muffled as though the house itself was swallowing sound. The whispers now came from within me, echoing in my skull, chanting something in a tongue I didn't understand. In the darkness, a vision flickered, brief but scalding. A woman, robed in black lace, chanting over a crib, and bled from the salt lines she carved into the wood. The baby inside, twins, one crying, the other silent. She whispered, "Only one will stay. The other must sleep beneath." I sobbed. I remembered none of this, yet it felt like my memory. My truth. Suddenly, silence. The house stilled. The air cleared. I pushed myself up, heart pounding. Maybe it was over. Maybe the ritual had worked. I stepped into the hallway. Clean, bright, but then the hallway stretched unnaturally long. The lights flickered red. The portrait of the Ariel family photomorphed before my eyes. My mother's face was slashed with red. My own eyes bled. Daniel's side of the frame was empty. The walls cracked open like skin. From them emerged rows of teeth, chattering, hungry. I ran again, but my legs refused to move. I was sinking into the floor, and then I heard it. "You were the one that wasn't supposed to survive." The room swallowed me, not metaphorically, literally. The floor had turned gelatinous, sucking at my ankles like it craved me whole. I thrashed, clawing at the wall, but it pulsed beneath my fingertips, cold and rubbery, like old flesh. A coppery stench filled my nostrils. Every breath burned my throat, coated my tongue with the acrid taste of rust and rot. The walls moaned, not from pressure or strain, but in agony. I wasn't alone inside this house. I never was. A burst of clarity hit me. I remembered the newspaper I found in the attic, killowed and brittle, wrapped in twine. Story buried deep within. Local. Twins found dead in cradle. Only one buried. The article was stained with what I'd hoped was water, but now I was sure it was blood. Below it, handwritten, "Split souls can't share flesh." I screamed until my voice cracked. My hands bled from trying to claw free. For a moment, silence returned. I collapsed, sobbing, the surface solid once more beneath me. My mind whispered logic, hallucination, trauma, grief. Maybe I'd finally broken. Maybe this was all in my head. But the wallpaper began peeling itself off of leaning eyes underneath, watching, blinking, hundreds of them. They whispered in unison. He remembers now. I wept, laughed, then screamed again. I recalled my grandmother's stories, the ones I dismissed. The June Kirat, the cursed night when twins born under a blood moon would challenge death itself. She said villagers once burned such twins alive. God, our mother, had hidden us, lied, and something had taken Daniel instead. Maybe it had always been Daniel. Now the whispers are inside me. Psst. I feel him growing behind my eyes, waiting to come through. Okay? Write this down, but I don't know who's holding the pen anymore. Tomorrow, I may not be me. Asterisk.